Hi everyone, and welcome back to Project No Buy. Today's video is going to be the first monthly check-in for 2025, going over January's statistics, what I bought, what I wanted, what I didn't buy, and more. So one of the main projects of January was actually to go for the month without social media on my phone. And I actually kind of did this in maybe the worst way possible or the most imperfect way possible. I still kept Facebook on my phone, and that was mainly because I've never really had a problem with Facebook spending a lot of time on there. So I didn't really 100% commit, I guess. And it would have been fairly easy to not have Facebook on my phone in January. So I probably should have just gone ahead and done that and not spent the couple of minutes every few days checking in. I did also kind of have periods where I would reinstall Instagram and uninstall it. And so this was, again, to be 100% honest and transparent, one of the brands that I was interested in, still am a little bit interested in, it's maybe the one brand that I have a collection of, was releasing a limited edition product, and I wanted to kind of check in on that release. And so I was using Instagram to see if there was any more information on that, and I did not buy that product. It sold out, so it's not available for me to buy. But that's why I was kind of downloading and deleting Instagram to kind of check in on that release. So not optimal no-buy behavior, perhaps, as far as staying away from sources of temptation, but there we are. I did take off YouTube and TikTok and Instagram for most of the month, so I wasn't on those. I've had TikTok off of my phone for a long time. I only briefly re-downloaded it in December to share my little Christmas Carol snippets that were part of this channel's Vlogmas project as well. And then I really don't go on TikTok unless I'm actively posting, so that app has not been a problem for a long time, although it was a pretty big problem prior to my first no-buy year public attempt in 2024. I was spending way too much time on TikTok in 2022, 2023, so there's all the drama with it being possibly banned as well. And, I'm not really going to touch on that in this video, but there we go. Apparently it's back. I'm still continuing to not use TikTok. So I guess the biggest difference as far as practical use for me was to not have the YouTube app on my phone. And it quickly became apparent that I was really missing having the YouTube content for a company doing what more mundane housework activities, the dishes, the cooking, things I don't always want to do. And so I would go on my browser and use YouTube there. And it did kind of restrict me to more of my kind of regular favorite content, which I think is a good thing. I spent less time kind of scrolling and browsing because it's just not as user-friendly, and I think that's probably the way to go. It is a little more inconvenient if I want to listen to a longer video like a podcast while driving, because the map screen doesn't overlay on the browser like it does on the YouTube app. So there is that minor inconvenience, but I think it's probably worth it. Overall, I did spend less time on my phone. Last year, when I started doing the digital detox, I think my phone time was like in the 50 to 60 hour range per week, which is more than a full-time job. I had it on a lot in the background. So small incremental improvements here. And going to try to keep on this kind of small, incrementally positive improvement trajectory in 2025. Limiting exposure to influence, limiting exposure to things to see and then to want and then to buy. I did make a note here of the one time I thought about actually checking out TikTok. And this is where I was experiencing a little bit of dental anxiety because I'm still not sure that the tooth that I had a procedure on last year, I'll link that video up here, the procedure, I'm still not sure that that is fully healing. And the next step, if that procedure doesn't work, is probably getting it extracted and getting an implant. And so I thought, maybe I do want to see some people on TikTok who've had this done, talking about how bad the implant procedure was, how tough the process was, how much it costs, stuff like that, for kind of practical relatability and also kind of to soothe the anxiety, because I was hoping to maybe find some stories of people getting one and not having a bad experience, which I actually did. I went on TikTok to look for that and saw some people, people like me in their 30s or whatever, early 30s, late 20s, who were in the unfortunate situation of having to have a dental implant, extraction, etc. And it did make me feel less alone, less kind of shame for my poor dental health, even though I really tried to keep on top of things and floss and brush and all that and try to cut down on sugar and still just have poor dental health, bad teeth. So it kind of was reassuring to see content from people like me. This is not influencer content, right? People can't generally get sponsorships for dental implants. It's genuine, relatable reassurance. So that is the one reason that I looked at TikTok in January, and I did get what I came for. I got what I was seeking to get from that experience. And I didn't spend a lot of time scrolling after that either. So anyway, that's something else to save money for if indeed my suspicions or my worst fears are true and I do eventually need a dental implant. Should probably put away like $4,000 or something like that to have the money in hand if that day comes. Fingers crossed that it does not. Okay, so if you've been following along all the videos up to this point, you'll know already that January was a buy month for me, so kind of a no-buy failing. But I did set out this year not to necessarily do 12 months of perfect no-buy, but to do more months of no-buy than I did last year. And I do think I can realistically aim for 8 to 10 months of real strict no-buy. And, according to my own rules. So that does include a couple of meals out when I'm at work and doesn't include reasonable replacements, which I've already kind of talked about in this video here, that there will be very few actually legitimate reasonable replacements that are needed in 2025. So anyway, if you've been following the journey, you'll know that I did buy some things in January. It is my birthday month, or was my birthday month, and therefore I guess it was a trigger that I had not yet resolved as far as celebrating myself on that special occasion. And so now I have a whole other year, whole next year, whole new year to evaluate that trigger and prepare for next January. It was kind of something I ignored during my no-buy year because it was in January, I was confronted with it right away in 2024. And what I had done that year was kind of pre-purchased everything to be the birthday present. And then I didn't really think about it until 2025, this year came around and it was already upon me. And setting out the rules for my next no-buy year, I did try to plan, but I guess I wasn't really prepared for the reality of how it would feel in the moment. And so I ended up making more purchases than I allowed for. And I haven't gone over my yearly budget. That would be very difficult to do, I think, for me. Even in my peak of shopping issues or whatever, would not be prone to spending an entire $2,000 in one go. That would be shocking and unprecedented. But I did spend more than my monthly allotment of $200 each month. And I didn't really make a hard and fast rule about having to accumulate the balance. So I have, in a way, kind of spent from future months, and I am okay with that. For me, it's more about the yearly budget, although it's not great for practical cash flow, right? So in some ways, I can't really afford to do that again. And it hopefully will be a non-issue as the next few months are supposed to be hard no-buy anyway. But it will be something that maybe needs to be addressed better in years to come, as far as maybe having more of the budget tucked away before spending it in January, even for birthdays. But anyway, my next notes here in my journal here are about how it felt to unbox the birthday gifts. And so I ordered some clothing items off of Mercari. I had a Sephora order to take advantage of the birthday gift. And I also made another couple of orders that I haven't talked about on this channel yet because they hadn't happened at the last time of filming. So I made some more clothing orders, and unfortunately, these ones were not even secondhand. One of them was from a company that I purchased from before, but it was a company that I didn't mention, because I'm not mentioning brands, in the video of 5 regrets in my wardrobe. And I explicitly said that I wasn't going to look for a replacement like I used to do all the time, right? I used to engage in those behaviors of, oh, I'm letting go of this for this reason, but I still like it and will get it in this version. And I said explicitly that I wasn't doing that this time. And I think I must have jinxed myself with that, because what did I then proceed to do? Not immediately, right? I didn't do it right away, which is what I would have done before. But it took a week or 2 weeks before I thought, you know what? After evaluating my actual wardrobe usage and the types of clothing that I again, I'm not going to say I have wardrobe gaps, because that's not realistic, but the types of clothing that I would wear more of if I had, I did choose to get one of my regret purchases in a different color, so namely concert black, so that I would have more opportunities to wear it. I'll go into this in more wardrobe focused videos, but basically, long story short, is I wear black a lot more than I thought for work, and I didn't have a shirt that's not a lot of my black tops are form-fitting or like blazer sweater material, and I kind of don't really have as many non-form-fitting options that can just be worn as a top, like just a shirt standalone. And so one of the shirts that I was letting go of in a different color was actually the perfect candidate for being a great fit in black. And so this is kind of all convoluted. I'm sorry about that. But basically, I bought 2 black top options and 1 top option in the green color of the shirt that I was letting go of, just because I was really, really attached to that color. And again, stepped right into the hole that I said I wasn't going to, and it still remains to be seen whether I'm going to keep all of these things, because I've only just gotten them. You know, my birthday's at the very end of January. And so I will evaluate very carefully whether I actually keep these things. I do still consider it a no-buy failure. And I'm not even sure, you know, if I decide to send things back, whether or not I will put that money back into the budget, because I kind of already bought the item, if that makes sense. This is a topic to explore later, depending on the actual outcomes. But anyway, so I got those 3 clothing pieces, and after a night of sleeplessness due to traveling last week, I did also cave and order some shoes that were on my list of things that I didn't buy last year, which is kind of crazy, right? They're still lingering around. Somehow I was browsing on the internet, and I don't know if it was in my Google News feed, but it came up that these shoes were now on sale. And so I'm not going to mention the brand or show them here, but basically they were in the realms of $160 to start with, I think, and they were on sale for like $53 or something like that. And so, you know, my brain, despite all the things I cognitively know, that it doesn't really matter, it's irrelevant how much the shoes were, I'm still contemplating spending $60 or whatever, $50, 60 with shipping, whatever it is. And it's not relevant that I'm saving $100 off the retail price, because that's not what we're up against here. Also, would I have even bought them at retail price? You know, that's another question. Despite all of my better judgments kind of screaming in the back of my mind, you know, the angel on my shoulder saying, hey, don't do this. You also have a channel here where you talk about things that you want to buy and don't, and the reasons why you're not buying stuff, and you could do better than this. I guess in reality I can't, at least not when I've lost a whole night's sleep and have been traveling with small children. So that was an unanticipated trigger. I knew I'd be tired, but I didn't know that I would fall into a purchase like that. And it was still before my birthday, so there was that kind of built-in justification of, oh, I'm treating myself for the special occasion. It's not every day you celebrate, you know, a new milestone year of life. You know, it's one day a year, which is still kind of maybe relatively frequently, especially if you're thinking about shopping once a year or twice a year if you do it for multiple occasions. But anyway, the point is I had this kind of occasion-based justification and a whole night of not sleeping prior to getting up very early and traveling with children. So it was high stress, low sleep, was feeling pretty bad, and I was trying to let my husband get a nap because he was on the trip to run a marathon. And so he needed to sleep to be able to do that the next day. So I had to kind of hold down the fort and keep everybody occupied while he got to do that. And so to continue to keep myself occupied and awake and, you know, in a mood palatable enough to be kind of entertaining small people, I ended up making that purchase. And, you know, I guess the thing is, it kind of worked, right? I wouldn't be doing these behaviors, nobody would be, if they didn't work at all, right? If they didn't make us feel happy in any way. And so it's not that I didn't get what I was seeking through making the purchase. I still haven't received those shoes and tried them on and whatever. So it's not that I know that I'm going to get what I'm seeking as far as the actual item. But as far as the part of seeking something to soothe and comfort myself, or to keep myself awake, or to make myself feel better, it does work. And that's the problem. The thing is, it doesn't work long term, right? The actual item was not what made it work, right? The item was kind of irrelevant. And that's not to say that buying something else, you know, buying something cheap or necessary is a good substitute, right? I think we need to detach from these kind of behaviors as responses to those triggers, full stop, right? That's the goal. But it just emphasizes further the point that the object is not what you actually want. And it's kind of a side effect, right? If you actually do like what you ended up buying, sometimes that can be more of a collateral side effect than the actual impetus for the purchase. And so, unlike the clothing order, where I did think about it a lot, and I thought about, again, I'm going to talk a little bit more about cost per wear and how it's kind of a scam, hyperbole there, right? I'm going to break it down. Don't get mad at me. Or, wait to get mad at me until you see that video later. But I analyzed it and applied it to practical life use. And I decided consciously to make that decision and chose those pieces with intention. And the shoe purchase was more purely based on the feelings, the emotional triggers, the stress, the lack of sleep, the fatigue, the looking for the pick-me-up. And we'll see. We'll see what happens when those come in and whether it's kind of an immediate return or what I learned from actually interacting with the object that was kind of the center point of this pick-me-up purchase, I guess. I also wonder if I hadn't seen those last year and kind of had them on my things I didn't buy, things I wanted to buy but didn't list, would they have had so much intrigue? I am not really attracted to random articles about sales from things that I haven't seen before, right? And so if I put enough distance between the things that I wanted to buy but didn't in 2024, there haven't been a whole lot of things that I wanted to buy but didn't in 2025. In fact, I don't think there are any, partly because I bought everything, but also partly because I just don't think like that anymore, right? I don't look at things with the idea that I could want them and save them for later and put them on a wish list and eventually buy them, right? That's not how I operate. And so I think there is a reason that all of these things that I bought, even in 2024, but even now, kind of into the next year, they're all from previous wish lists of that time where I was looking at things with this eye of, oh, I could have that. Oh, I could want that. Oh, I could use that to fulfill an emotional need by buying it. And there's nothing new that's come across that radar lately. And I do say that, but there's one more thing that I purchased for the birthday extravaganza of 2025. And that is a couple of makeup purchases. And once again, I saw these at the end of 2024. There was a kind of conscious consumerism, low buy, no buy creator who was talking about these makeup products or one of them. And what happened is we went into an Ulta physically, we went into the store. My husband was buying some of his shampoo, which is purchased at Ulta. And so I went in, I was planning to not buy these. I think I even talked about it maybe in the previous video where I admitted to failing in January or starting off with a buy month. And I really intended to not buy these. And then we went into the store and I thought, you know what, let me just go look at them. And the whole kind of justification mindset took over and it was all, well, it's the birthday now. If I buy them now, I'll have the whole year to actually use the products. I won't just be waiting, for a whole year and interested in these products that I wouldn't actually get the use value out of if I don't have them, which again, did I actually need them is kind of debatable. I do think I will get a lot of use and wear out of these products because they're not really things that I have duplicates of. One of them is a facial powder product, like a highlighter. One of them is a cream eyeshadow, but the gold one I got last year, I talked about it in the If I Could Only Keep One makeup video where I was talking about how makeup is not as much of a problem for me anymore, and then ironically proceeded to buy a lot of makeup, and it's continuing. But anyway, I talked about this gold cream eyeshadow, and I actually really, really don't like that product. I had never tried it before. It was part of a value set. Lesson learned, never going to do the value set thing again, no matter how much of a good deal it looks like or feels like as far as the use value of the products. If I don't know that the products in there are good fits for me, it's just not a good move. So anyway, this is kind of a replacement for that product that I don't even know if I'm interested in using up because it just doesn't even work for me. So anyway, cream eyeshadow and a highlighter product in a formula that I don't have already, and so it's kind of going to function a little bit differently. Were they needs? No. And so I'm fully aware that this is the justification mentality also talking right now as far as the functions of these products, but it could have been worse, and in some ways going to the store physically did kind of reassure me in the purchase because I saw the items physically and they did live up to my expectations. And so I don't know. It just seemed like not that bad of a move for just, again, the birthday justifications, I guess. I will say that the two clothing items I thrifted on Mercari were really satisfying. They are really satisfying, and I do foresee getting a lot of use out of them, so I don't really have regrets there. Unboxing the Sephora order is a little bit different in that it did feel kind of icky in some ways. mainly because I opened the box and it felt like a ton of pieces of tiny plastic were staring back at me. And, I got minis of the products that I selected that were not needs or replacements. So I got a mini eyeshadow stick and a mini blush. And they were really mini, right? It was like, there's more plastic than product here for sure. And while I've started using them both now, and I actually do appreciate both getting the minis and having the products, right? They are kind of daily use products for me now. So no regrets in the products. The initial experience of opening the package was like, well, was this a good call? Was this a questionable decision? Or, both, I guess. And I am reminded to be a lot more mindful of shopping, especially online in general. But I guess the packaging and the waste and the shipping fuel and, the carbon emissions and all of that comes with buying things, right? It felt a little bit silly to be kind of not only paying, I think the mini blush was $15 and it was, about that big, and how much product is actually in there. It does seem like it'll last a long time because a little goes a long way. It remains to be seen. Maybe it'll show up in my 2025 empties lineup. But it did seem a little bit ridiculous, not only to spend $15 for such a small piece of plastic and a small amount of product, but to then think of the manufacturing that went into that tube of plastic, that product inside, the box that it came in, it had a cardboard box, the little piece of paper that it was wrapped in the box at large, and then the sample packets and the little other plastics for the rest of the products. It's starting to feel a little more and more icky the more that this happens. And then the same thing with the birthday gift, right? It's a box that doesn't really need to be there. It's two tiny plastic products that have a tiny amount of product in them. Actually, there's probably a decent amount of product as far as how long it'll take me to use them up. But, the point I'm trying to make here is that I feel the silly impacts, the unnecessary impacts of, the impact is not silly, even if the purchase is silly, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Someone had to figure out how to do all these manufacturing things. And then, somebody had to pack the package. Somebody had to design that little plastic tube and figure out how to do all that and use the resources and send it in the mail, the carbon flying packages all over the place. And I just want to get away from it, to be honest. And I think I have a renewed commitment for the rest of 2025. And a renewed motivation to do more work before the next holiday season, which would be Christmas, where I would be kind of triggered to fall into the same kind of purchasing traps, if that makes sense. So by the time we get to November, I really want to be clear on my priorities, my own kind of how to behave with integrity to line up with my own values, and to maybe consume more information myself that can help me both determine these values as well as stay true to my own path. The last thing I ordered was those books that I've already mentioned, and I don't really have regrets about those, I'm going to be honest. I am happy to have the specific books that I chose, happy to own them long term, happy that I got them off thrift books, and for me, spending $12 on the books was not a financial kind of motivator to not do it, if that makes sense. I am a little bit more wary, again, of the impact of thrifting books online in a situation where each book is then kind of sent either individually or in pairs. I think in this particular order, I got 2 books in one package and 1 in another. And so, that's a lot of traveling for these books to get to me. And I am a little bit more wary of that. I probably could have found some of them at my local half-price books, and that's probably the better move going forward. So I am going to try to, in earnest, avoid that for the rest of 2025. Not only because I was really firm in my goal to not buy any books until I finished everything I have, but also because of these kind of newfound feelings of the impact of online shopping in particular. But back to the idea of consuming information, I guess. Maybe that's a good time to segue into the books that I got through in January. So I think I had a goal of 5 books per month, and I did actually achieve that. One of the books that I read was on my Kindle. It was kind of a more light kind of chick flick type book in the villa or something like that. I'll maybe put a picture of it up here or screenshot. And that was kind of like my light reading. The other books, some of which you've seen already, are the productivity ones. I actually read Slow Productivity last year, so I'm not counting that, although I did kind of revisit it a little bit. It was these 2 productivity books that were read in January, the Feel Good Productivity and Getting Things Done. I'll link that video up here if you haven't seen my kind of review. And then these 2 kind of no-buy / financially related books were finished in January too. So this is A Year Without Purchase the one written by the worship leader that I was initially skeptical about, but actually enjoyed a lot more than I thought I would. And this book called Spent, Break the Buying Obsession and Discover Your True Worth by Sally Palayan. I'm sorry for mispronouncing that. But this one is about addictive relationships with money. And both of these, I think, will make a reappearance on this channel in February. So I'll leave those there. And that is a total of 5 books. I'm also still working my way through one more no-buy account. I can't find it here, but I'm maybe halfway through that one. I think I'm going to be finished with it in early February. And I also started to buy or not to buy, which has been mentioned in the comments of this channel. And this one, I think I'm actually going to do some more work with on this channel. It's kind of blown my expectations out of the water as far as how helpful maybe a book like this could be. So I'm going to be sharing that with you later. So I think I've actually talked about everything that I've consumed now. I was supposed to do this in a nice segmented chronological order so we could be organized about it, but what I consumed includes the screen time, books, media, and videos. I do have a playlist running of videos that inspire me in 2025, so you can find that on my channel to see kind of what the videos I consumed were that I thought were worth watching in a way, or left me with a lasting impression. Didn't really have any standout favorites in music this month or other media, movies, etc. But I did get reacquainted with the Fight Club soundtrack, which has one of the songs that I used in my intros, outros, Space Monkeys by the Dust Brothers. So that's kind of a little cheeky nod to a kind of rediscovered music, not favorite per se, but just kind of something fun. Okay, going on to the rest of my metrics here. Hopefully in the other check-ins, for February and beyond, I'll do this in a much more organized way so I can timestamp it and all that. But what I wanted, bought, used up, or decluttered is kind of the next category. So what I bought, the Sephora birthday gift with the replacement foundation, the blush, and the eyeshadow. I pulled the birthday new products card and chose minis for the products that I got. Also the 2 Mercari purchases, the dress, the pair of shoes, and then the 3 tops from that brand that I won't mention, and another pair of shoes, 2 more makeup products, and 3 books. So if we're going by my clothing rules, the rule of 5, I have actually already gone over, so I'm now at 6 items. And I am not that happy about that, to be honest. I do think I can stick to 10 for this year. My good, better, best goals, I can hit the better target, right? And given that I purchased, 30 something last year during what was supposed to be a no-buy with 0, I guess it wasn't really realistic to expect me to go from 30 down to 5. However, I did really think that cognitively, logically, I didn't need anything, and so I shouldn't be buying anything. So there's probably going to be more reflections on this later. I'm still aiming for that better goal of 10, and actually if I can just be stuck here at 6, only kind of failing my rule of 5 by 1, I would be more okay with that, maybe. But, you never know what's going to come up, so I have to allow kind of the assumption, the expectation that something may more legitimately come up that, I fail to foresee what that could be now, but something may come up that necessitates that I use more of those kind of the new rule of 10 items in my kind of clothing goal allotment. So on one level, I don't feel that great about breaking my no-buy rules so early in the year in January. But on the other hand, I have learned a lot about my triggers and the levels of difficulty, I guess, of various different triggers. So birthdays, I guess, have presented much more of a difficulty trigger than I thought they would. And I did not do nearly enough or any kind of preparation work to really get my values straight, my attention straight as far as what I think is truly reasonable for celebrating oneself on a birthday or occasion like that. I guess also the triggers of being severely sleep deprived and tired and stressed. I have had these things happen in 2024 as well. It's not that I didn't have any of those triggers, but I guess I didn't really have them in the same way. I wasn't traveling and I wasn't trying to ensure that my husband got a nap or trying to kind of protect his peace in that way while we were confined into a single hotel room, I guess. So the difficulty was amplified. And so the propensity to fall into an old purchase habit to kind of soothe the difficulties in my life was also amplified. And so kind of led to the failure of the lab rat to adhere to intended guidelines, if you will. And clearly this journal was not updated after the purchase of the makeup at Ulta because I put those on the list of things that I wanted but didn't buy, and said that they'd be on hold for possible Christmas gifts or stocking stuffers. So nope, I ended up buying them, and there was nothing else that I saw and wanted. There's nothing that I've seen in 2024 other than that limited edition release from the brand that is the one that I downloaded Instagram to kind of follow a little bit on that. But I cannot buy that and will not buy that since it's no longer available. But other than seeing that one item, there's nothing that I've seen in 2025 come across my radar through exterior sources that I have wanted. So let's see if we can keep that streak up at least for this year and this iteration of Project No Buy. Is there anything else that I regret? Now, I do kind of regret the mini lipsticks that I got for my Christmas stocking. I also got some comments about stocking stuffers being for kids, and you can pry away my adult stocking stuffers from my cold dead hands. You can't make me grow up that much. I'm not a fan of junky gifts either, and so that's why I am okay with getting a couple of small things for my Christmas stocking. And I foresee that when my kids are older as well, we might do something similar with small, and by small, I guess I mean a total of under $40, maybe under $40 per collection of makeup items per stocking. At least that's kind of in line with what I was spending this year for that category per person in the family. And, this is going to be different for everybody. And I can't even fully commit to that figure. I just kind of pulled it out of thin air based on the experience of last year. I can't really commit to that. My current stocking stuffer budget was lower than that because we're not at the stage where everybody is consuming makeup products, for example. So we might have to put a pin in that and discuss that later. So I don't want to be held to that. But my point is, I don't know that I'm ready to let go of that yet, that ritual of having a small makeup product in the stocking for myself as a practical gift, or a gift that I think will be somewhat practical and also enjoy. Although the kind of gentle project pan that I might be thinking about this year might change my opinion on that when I realize that I truly cannot use up all the products that I have, and maybe the waste will start to hurt me a little bit more as it did in the unboxing of the Sephora order. So anyway, that's kind of a lot, but we'll circle back to this, to use business jargon, in November, December. But the point was, I do kind of regret the mini lipsticks because I do kind of feel like I didn't really need them. Although I did wear one of the colors for filming a few videos in January, and I liked it a lot more than I thought reviewing the footage, right? I liked how it looked. And so maybe that wasn't a regret after all. It's kind of a mixed bag, right? Like, I feel like I didn't need it, but I do appreciate having it and using it. So this is kind of, or maybe, both things can be true, right? I feel like I didn't need it, and I now have it and appreciate using it, and am grateful to have it. So, both things can be true at the same time. I had a really insightful comment about that, so thank you for that. You know who you are. Okay, so how much did I spend and save is my next question of accountability. And again, feel free to put your answers down in the comments below, or just journal along with me as I do my kind of monthly reflection for January. So I spent $700 of my budget. So over 3 months of budget allotment were spent in January, and that's $700 out of my $2,400 for the year. So I have now adjusted the rest of my months down to $150. So that's approximately what it would be if I took, $2,400 minus $700 and then divided that by the 11 months that are remaining. So that's how I arrived at that conclusion. I do intend to try to do more hard no-buy months. So more actual no-buy months, February, March, April, and so on, to kind of rebuild that so that in, let's just say, November, if I do feel inclined to do a Christmas kind of gifts, treat myself session, then I'll have the funds available to do that. And the budget is king this year, right? The number one priority for me is to not go over my yearly budget. And again, I kind of already mentioned how I might have to find a more sustainable way financially to arrange this in future years, because I can't really reliably cash flow $700 every single month, or even on 1 month, without it being a little bit of a strain. But at least for January, despite that, I did manage to save an extra $300. So my goal was to send $500 to my Roth IRA and another $500 to emergencies. This month I did manage to send $600 to the Roth and $700 to emergencies, the emergency fund. So that was an extra $300 on top of the $500 in each category. So at least there's that, right? The budget is doing okay so far. It's maybe not great to have spent so much of it so early in the year in the first month, but at least the savings box is being checked. And that was the other kind of tie for top priority, right? Don't go over budget and save first. Now, if only I'd saved more of the money from the things that I actually spent, then I would have saved even more. But it's definitely a transition into the different habit, right, of reallocating money into the long-term savings and retirement instead of spending it in the more instant gratification kind of way. I do kind of see long-term that I might benefit from a shorter-term savings goal so that I do feel like there's some kind of closer gratification, maybe a vacation or something like that. But that's going to be revisited later and I will adjust accordingly. All right, the last question that I have here, and this is all based on the things I wanted to do in 2025. I think I shared it in my no buy rules explained. The last question, back to that, I interrupted myself, is did I do any viola pop covers? And the answer is yes. I aimed for, I think, 50 covers this year. That was my lofty goal. And I thought I wasn't going to be able to remotely hit it. But in January, I actually did, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of new to me pop covers. These are prototypes, right? So I have not released them. They're not complete. They're not like polished. But I recorded the notes and the loops for Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter, Pink Pony Club by Chapel Roan, Calm Down by Rema, and Too Sweet by Hosier. So that was actually 4 for January. And if I were to do 4 per month, that would be almost the 50 covers right there. And I actually did all of those in one sitting. So I could, depending on how many I could do, it's also the case that those were all easily loopable songs, like they're all kind of built on one loop of material, and not every song is going to be like that. But it is possible that I could hit that goal of 50. And my initial plan as of right now is to do a summer of songs on my music channel where I make some time to play these through, polish them, and then release them over the summer. So maybe doing like 1 a week or 2 a week or, however many I can pull together, and kind of maybe even notating them at that point. Although that's going to be a lot of extra work, but we'll see what I have time and bandwidth for. But the ball is rolling. And I kind of surprised myself with both how easy, I thought it was going to be really hard, but it wasn't actually as hard as I thought. And, I was suffering maybe from the overcomplication mentally, right? I thought it would be more complicated than it was. I can really start by keeping it simple and keeping it fun, right? So it was both easier and more fun than I thought it would be. Okay, so I feel like this chat is kind of rambling and unfocused. It's my first one of the year, right? My first recap. So hopefully they will become more organized as time goes on. But the action item for you in this video is to comment or journal for yourself if you don't want to share publicly all of these things in your own no-buy project, right? If you're doing a no-buy or low-buy or your own journey to conscious consumerism, tell me about all of these things we covered today, namely, is there anything you wanted, anything you bought, anything you used up or decluttered this month, or last month rather, in January? How much did you spend? How much did you save? Are you in line with your personal budget goals? What did you consume? And this could apply to screen time, books, media, movies, music. Anything else that's interesting, feel free to share. I would love to hear things that have positively impacted your journey. And then, are there any bonus categories? Like for me, the viola pop covers, how many did I do? Did I do any? Was it fun? How did that feel? What's your bonus category? Maybe it's exercising or learning a new skill or crafting or something like that. I would love to hear your bonus categories too. And drop those down below or pick one, pick them all. I'm here for your support and accountability as we all go through Project No Buy together. All right, so that was January's recap in a very large nutshell, a very long nutshell, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.